Good morning, everybody. Uh, it's early in the morning. My day has already started, and this is something that I had been wanting to do for a while. And it's basically more beef sector history, but this is focusing on um, people who we don't see on here anymore, who need to be remembered for what they contributed to this particular sector and also on the classic beefing sector beefs. Now, what I want to do is focus on one in particular, but there are so many that I had to make a list and write it down because there were so many back then. And I'm speaking about 2018, 2019, 2020, that particular point in time. And I know that a lot of people will remember. So when I list them, all of the beefs outside of the one that I'm going to focus on, I would hope that other content creators who are around at that time and who know the origins and the roots of the beef can basically give us, details. But these are people and beefs that should be forever enshrined in the history of the beefing sector. And I'm going to try to be unbiased. Uh, Sometimes it's not easy, but I'm going to try. And then on some people who are no longer around in the sector anymore, but who deserve to be remembered, remembered and preserved somehow, and acknowledged for what they contributed to uh, those times. Those were some wild times, I tell you. But some of the people who are missing in action these days, I don't know if they're up in the clouds or still around, and some of them are still around, and some of them have been around. And for example, who remembers Nicole Tyler and her Car Chronicles? And who remembers Reed when she was the best that I got, giving commentary? Mona. Mona could drag somebody, I'm telling you, to the white meat in their knees. I'm telling you, she was a dragger. Oh no was another person who gave commentary, and she really did give unbiased commentary. And a lot of people didn't like, not a lot of people, but some people didn't like that it was unbiased because if she was unbiased, sometimes it was not favorable to other people. But I'm still subscribed to her, and every now and then she'll drop drop in to say hello to everybody and keep it moving and go away again. Um, Achina, the Queen of Talk, and I remember her famous dance she did, and she was racking in the super chats for that dance she did. Oh, honey, she let it all hang out, and then she went away, and that was the end of that. But she could read also. Um, let's see who else. In fact, she when she did that dance, Jay Wilson copied and did he did a dance for the super chats. Um, Mama Sippin, Key with a T, ZT. Now ZT, that was a roaster and dragger, and he comes on every now and then, but not like he was back then, like say in 2018, 2019. Properly bona fide. She's still on YouTube, but she's not so much involved with the beefing sector anymore. Key with a T, Heidi, and those are some of the people. Even Pizarro, who was Miss Conspiracy Theory, but she was Pizarro. She was around in the chats at that time. And so these are the kind of histories that really, like Heidi, for example. Heidi can read and drag and roast, and nobody knows it, seems like, or people have forgotten. But you don't want Heidi to drag you. I'm telling you. Just like you don't want Reed to roast and drag you. And some dragon sisters, I tell you. But some of the classic beefs that people need to remember as far as the history, um, some are short term, some are long term, but most of the beefs back then were long term and enduring. Sometimes they lasted for days, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, and some continue to this day. And let me look at my list here. Okay. Um, First of all, is ZT versus Spillavoy TV, who you know as Treasure Lane, and Rick Reed versus QB, Rick Reed versus Mama Sippin', Spillavoy versus Skillet, Reed versus Fabe, VS versus Onsite April, Sean Bradley versus Spillavoy TV, and Spillavoy TV Treasure Lane versus Sean Bradley. And that seems to be ongoing because it resurfaces every now and then. When one of them says something about the other got to say something. So another ongoing one is Timothy Blaine versus Jay Wilson. Then there was Tracy versus Jay Wilson. And that's ironic because Jay Wilson, I remember when he introduced her and supported her, her debut. And we all went over and subscribed. And then it got to, like I say, Tracy versus Jay Wilson, Tracy versus Sean Bradley. And a lot of people came for Tracy during that time. In hindsight, Tracy was pretty green, and in hindsight, so was I. So, not to say that she was the only person that was green. I was too. Then there's QB versus James Caldwell, which seems to be ongoing. Um, Properly bona fide versus James Caldwell, Spillavoy TV. Shelley versus Sean Bradley. Narob versus Sean Bradley. Mona v. Tracy. Mona v. her subscribers. Chopper versus VS, and the Maddie Mob got involved in that one. Fabe versus everybody. Everybody versus Fabe. Treasure Lane versus Fabe. Shelley versus VS. These were some really, really strong classic beefs by some of the strongest readers and roasters and draggers in the sector at that time. And it shouldn't be forgotten because a lot of the beefs that they had, they were organic and they were real, and they didn't just end one day and they make friends the next day. These beefs went on, and like some of them, like I said, are still ongoing. And some of the opposite party may have gone away and left, but they were basically um, long-term beefs, strong beefs. Now, I will tell you, most recently, I saw a beef that was a roasting fest, basically, that reminded me of those times. And that particular one was Lady Nika versus KRN, KRN versus Lady Nika. And what was different about it, it was simultaneous. They were doing it at the same time. Your head was on a swivel, and you had to have two devices to keep up um, with what each one was saying. And so that one came I rank that among the older ones that were classic beefs and roasting and dragging. And yeah, that one really was something. And so apparently that one was never squashed or anything like that. So, um, but when you land into the beef sector and you don't know the rules of the game, your head will be on a swivel. And like I said, I'm going to try to be unbiased. But the one that I'm going to focus on, and I do hope that some other content creators will give us some insight into the beasts that I referenced. But what I want to talk about, and I'm going to speak on this one because I had a front row seat to both parties at the beginning and then after as well, midway. But that's the beef between Phi Babe and Shalina, Babe Nation, versus Sean Bradley. And that was the one that just shocked me because I didn't see it coming, because I didn't know where I was. But to begin with, um, when she was formerly known as Phi Babe, she had a morning show and she said she was a prophetess. In fact, I sent her a couple of emails. Have you got your coffee? And she seemed pretty benign. She didn't seem as tough or whatever. And I was also subscribed at the same time, and I'm subscribed to Sean Bradley first. And, I didn't see it coming. All of a sudden, there was this thing where Phi Babe came for him and or he came for her. I don't know who came for who first. I don't remember. I just remember that suddenly there was this big blow up, and I'm like, oh my, I thought all y'all was friends. And um, Jay Wilson, and you got to give him credit for this, he always said there are no friends on YouTube. And he's been here through all of this. And turns out he's right. Um, Never last. Short term, maybe, even if it's offline, short term. I've seen people who were seemed to be really close suddenly fall out. Boom! It's Mad Day. It's roast and drag time. So, but anyway, when they started their beef, the one thing I remember her saying was, "And this is military." And then Sean Brown said, "What she mean, military?" I mean, they went back and forth, up and down. I mean, up one side of the one of them and down the other. And she held her own and he stood his ground as well. And it was a classic beef. Unfortunately, most of those videos are no longer available um, because, you know, they took them down or they no longer have access to them or whatever. But those were some strong beefs. Now, the beef went on. Okay. And then they decided to, quote, make friends, or so that's the way I saw it. And everything was calm. And then everybody went back over into everybody's chat and visited and dropped down. And then it started again. And, you know, everybody would pick a side. And I remember the last time I was subscribed to her, I picked a side, and but I was the last one to leave. And to be honest, you know, that's what happened. A lot of people didn't know who was right or who was wrong. And the thing about it is, for the new people and for the subscribers, I would tell you, they both could be right, they both could be wrong. your best bet is to stay in the clouds and watch and don't take a side. Stand down and stand back. But, we didn't do that back then. And so when the show came about, and Fibe was one of the people who uh, were on the show, everybody kind of relaxed and thought they were friends again. And it was made clear to people, no, we're not friends. We're just being civil. It's business. Okay. But then she withdrew from the show and it started all over again. And that beef, I believe, is ongoing. But the way that it unfolded, it was so surprising. And I would say that when you're involved and engaged with beefs with so many different people, things get lost and the reasons get lost. And I still can't remember, I'll put it like that, can't remember the reason. But honey, they came at each other blazing. They came in hot. They were not playing with each other. And the dragging went as low as you can go. It went, like I said, up one side and down the other. It started dealing with family members. It started dealing with all kind of stuff. And it was one of the strongest beats and the strongest stands that I've seen since I've been on here. And they never made friends again, never decided to be civil again. And so that beef is ongoing and enduring. But the one thing that I remember is the strength of the roast and the roast and the drags, rather. Um, they pull no punches and they showed no mercy. And those beefs that I mentioned before and this one were the ones that stood out in my memory because I was watching from a front row seat, as I said, and hearing everything and essentially still not understanding why. But if one person said something about the other, boom, there you go. Here we go again. And there's no love lost between the two parties to this day. But you have to say that in remembering the beef, it was more than entertaining. It was attention grabbing. It held your attention. And um, the things that they said about each other, which were really cruel to a large degree on both sides, they you don't get over that. That doesn't end. And so that's why you can say it's ongoing, because some of the things that were said were very harsh towards both of them. Some of the criticisms were harsh between the two of them. Some truths were spoken, and the truth hurts. But to say that that beef could be ignored and pushed aside, you know, to non-remembrance. No, that one should be remembered, just as the one between Five Babe and Spillaboy TV, or the one between Rick Reed and QB. Those are beefs that um, go on and on and on. But to look at and listen to the actual videos, which again are no longer available, you would be able to see that these were two strong people who came at each other One responded and the other responded, and one started and the other started. There was no one person that was doing something to the other person solely alone. They were going back and forth, and to the point where they just stopped. But every now and then there'll be a reference. And that's something that I feel the new people need to be aware of when you want to talk about beefing. Like I said, the closest that it has come on the same level has been that between Lady Nika and KRN. And they basically um, set a new standard. I ain't never seen a simultaneous roast and drag until then. They were on at the same time, listening to each other, talking back and forth. The chat was going one place. They were carrying, everybody was carrying bones. It was something else. Um, those are the ones that need to be remembered. And when you see that, then you know what the beef sector is really about. It's not like I'm mad at you today, so I'm going to drag you today. And I'm not going to um, talk to you the rest of the day. And then the next day, you're friends. The other thing of interest is that there were no panels assisting with the beefs. People came up on their own, alone, and they beefed with the person on their own. They didn't do a panel to have other people support them on a panel. And so uh, this is what the beefing sector was about. And this is why a lot of the, as you call them, OGs and so on, um, don't take part that much right now. Some of the people that you call OGs weren't had just gotten here when some of these beefs were ongoing. Um, and the ones that I named were the ones that stood out the most. And but there's a lot of people that I haven't referenced by choice, and because I wouldn't have anything positive to say. But I would like to see, as I said, other content creators go over some of those other beefs and provide us with some details of how they all began. Because at some point, there were a lot of pile-ons by subscribers, which I don't think people should do at this point in hindsight. Um, but they should be remembered. And that's why they can walk away from stuff because they've been there, done that. Some people get tired of repeating the same thing over and over again, the lies that come out. Um, they'll come out and say, where's the proof? Where's the proof? Nobody can answer. Um, there's a lot of things that are said. Nobody really knows the truth but the person themselves. But they refuted it, disputed it, denied it, and that's sufficient. Um, the accusations and so on that come out continued, and it was really a lot. And as I said, there's people who had beef with everybody. It wasn't long term, but the persons no longer associate with them. They're not subscribed to them. They have them blocked. So you might say it's ongoing, but it's a nonverbal ongoing. And one thing about beef sector beefs, if they're organic and real, um, it may as well be in real life, out in the real world, because they're serious about it. It's not a play. It's not just for the day. It's not just for the night. It's forever. And that's the way they rolled with it. In fact, when the show came on and everybody was in the same room, it wasn't pleasant. Another person that I didn't mention was Jay Dunn. she was around. She had some beefs with people as well. And for a while, it was Jay Dunn versus everybody and everybody versus Jay Dunn. These people have earned their stripes in the sector. And for that reason, the people that I listed and named need to be respected for that because they've been run through the mill. I'll tell you. And hopefully, maybe somebody will put those videos up again and focus, or the people that they focus on, they might be able to have uh, a video that they can share if it's allowed, if permission is granted. But yeah, I would say that it is no longer the same. Like, it's not the same. And a lot of the older content creators, some of them were not part of the sector back then, but a few of them came right at the end of it. Um, and they just can't get with what's going on right now. Some of them saying that it's boring. Others say they've been there, done that, they're tired of it. And people do outgrow things or they move on to better things. And there are people who have a better knowledge of the entire history than I do. Uh, because, like I said, I came around 2000, somewhere in 2017, 2018. And essentially, and even my record on YouTube doesn't show that simply because uh, when I changed my email address, then they changed Google or YouTube or whoever changed the time. But I've been here since 2013, but I was not part of the beef sector. I didn't even know it existed until 2017 or 2018. Right, let's say during the time uh, before Maddie and Kaya, before their breakup. But that's when it really got to popping during that time because everybody picked a side. So, anyway, I hope I've given you some information that you can use and mention some people who are noteworthy were noteworthy in the sector at the time. And hopefully, you'll see why some people will say, oh, they not beef sector, because there is a thing going on now where people are trying to say who's beef sector or who's not. Um, the shunning of people I don't agree with because I know who puts that forward. And it's, you know, saying, well, we're going to black out this person. That's kind of cultish, basically, is in my opinion. But people do move on. And I hope that when you hear this little snippet about previous beefs, you might go over to, I think the one person who has not removed their videos is Spill It Boy TV on that channel and the Treasure Lane channel. And, there's some others as well. But yeah, take a look at them, see if you can find any of them. And if you have the information about the origins and what started it and how it went, please share it with us. Because Fabe versus Sean Bradley, there were a lot of videos. There was a lot of back and forth. And it was not something that anybody saw coming. And it's ongoing. It's forever, I believe. Anyway, just thought I'd come in and share that with you all. It was on my mind when I was watching some people saying they were beefing. And I wanted to let y'all know what some real beefs they really existed. So you all have a great day, and Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Bye-bye.